So this is the morning after my colonoscopy and upper GI endoscopy. So this is from what I remember from yesterday. So I had done all the prep stuff. I had gotten up, took my blood pressure medicine, and then I put um, you know, I did all I was supposed to do and wait until 8:30 and no more liquids at all. I was supposed to be there at 12:15, and so we left at like 11:30 just so I'd be early because it's across town, but like in case there's traffic or something like that. So we got over to the office, and so I signed all the paperwork that they had me also do, and show my insurance card and ID and all that jazz. And so they were like, okay, so we're going to take you behind here, like once they called my name, and so we'll have you answer several more questions, and then we'll have you put the gown on and get an IV put in you, and then just waiting for get some fluid started and waiting for the doctor to be ready for your procedure. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. There's like 3 other doctors that were doing procedures. So all these people were leaving before me. My procedure was supposed to be at 1, and I didn't get in there until about 2:15 about. And so they were like, okay, well, like, we're sorry for the wait. We're sorry for the delay. The doctor, she was kind of backlogged, so she'll be with you as soon as she can. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And I had asked Michael, can my mom come in here? I had left so they gave me a bucket to put my purse and my clothes in, so I put that in there and my cell phone, so I couldn't exactly play on it while I'm waiting. And so they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. Instead of her being left in the dark and finding out what the heck is going on, I thought, like, you know what, she'll be back here so I can talk to her. And so she came back, and it was finally after 2, and they're finally go, okay, well, I talked to the anesthesiologist, and he was like asking me, like, so do you have like dentures and like all this stuff, and like what. And he said, like, oh, it says that you have blood pressure, high blood pressure, but it doesn't say that you're on anything. I'm like, yeah, I'm on lisinopril and amlodipine. So they're like, okay. So they, he's like, oh, okay, that's cool. And right off, when the nurse was checking me in, she was asking me, like, oh, so we have to ask when you go to use the restroom beforehand, are you pregnant? And it's like, no, I'm not. And they're like, okay, good. So I'll have you sign off on this saying that you're not pregnant. And it's like, okay. And so the doctor, the anesthesiologist, I had asked him about if they can give me, because I was super nervous to, give me something to, kind of calm me down. And they're going, no, unfortunately, we can't do that. So I was like, he's like, oh, but don't worry. Once you're back there, we'll give you propofol and you'll be out like within like 10-15 seconds. And I'm like, okay. So wait until they said, okay, Rachel, we're going to take you back. So mom was like, said her goodbyes and stuff, because she's gone through colonoscopy a couple times, and I've had to drive her both times. And so they're like, okay, well, we get back there. So I finally met my gastroenterologist, and she was like, so why are you coming back here? You're only 40. Why are you getting a colonoscopy and upper endoscopy? And I told her, I'm like, well, I was having some abdominal issues, and I wasn't sure if it was my primary care physician, didn't know if it was, something, gastrointestinal, or, even, for something that's not. And I had explained to her for me going to the ER and stuff, and she's like, well, we'll take a look and see what we find. So it took 2 nurses, one needle to finally get an IV in me. I'm so glad it only took one needle and not, they were like trying to figure out, okay, so like, we'll try this needle, larger gauge needle. So they had it in there. I had fluids going. I had, you know, like the EKG, and had the blood pressure cuff and the pulse oximeter, that like thing on your finger and stuff. And so what the anesthesiologist had told me, he's like, okay, so what we're going to do when we bring you back there, because I heard him, you know, from talking to somebody else, that what they usually do is they wait for the doctor to come in. Once they put the thing in your mouth to keep your mouth open for the scope to go down, once that gets attached, once they start doing that, they're going to give you the propofol, and you're going to be out like a light, and you won't know what happens, what goes on. And he's like, unless you want to be awake. I'm like, no. He's like, oh, me either. I did not want to be awake. And he's like, I did not want to know what's going on. So I'm like, okay, cool. So finally time comes. So they roll me back there to the room. I literally watched, I think, 20 people move, because they had another bed right in front of mine, and they kept on switching that out for a new one after people that had gone to their procedure. So they kept on switching them off, and because that's how quick they are. And so I get to the room, and they did like the nasal cannula where they put the like oxygen thing in your nose. And so I had told them, I go, oh, my glasses and stuff. And they go, oh, I'm sorry. So I took my glasses off, put it in the bin, and they were like, okay, so we're going to wait for, you know, the doctor to scrub up and then, you know, come back in, and then we'll, you know, start you off. And when I had like the nasal prongs in, I thought like, oh, cool, I'm already getting oxygen. It wasn't even attached to the machine yet. I was just breathing in whatever air was in the room. And so they finally hooked that up, and, you know, hooked up everything else. And that they were like, okay, so we're going to have you lay on your left side. I told them I have sciatica, so they're going, it's a good thing that we're not doing on the right, because it would hurt a lot more if I did it on my right side. And so they're like, okay, so we'll have you put your hand on top of like the sides that come up on the bed, and have your other arm, you know, down and stuff. And so we're like waiting, and they had the mouthpiece, and the lady was pretending to be like, it was like showing it off. Like, here's this, and ooh, ah, and, you know, they're like trying to be funny, and they're really nice people. And so finally the doctor came back in, and they're like going, okay, so we did the timeout. We know this is Rachel. She's going in for this. And they're like, okay, Rachel, so we're going to put that in there. Just don't forget, we're going to be like in 10-15 seconds, you're going to be gone. You're not going to know I hit you. And I'm like, okay. So I had my head, you know, on the pillow, and they're like, okay, so we're going to start the anesthesia. And so it's going to be like 10-15 seconds. And I'm like, kind of like, I literally felt like waves, and I was like dizzy, and I'm like, ugh. I was just out. Don't know what had happened. I was just so far gone. Don't even remember anything until I woke up really groggy in the recovery room, still on the bed, and still had the IV in me and all that, and slowly like waking up. They didn't give me any water, you know, ice chips or anything to eat afterwards. So when I was like a bit more awake, and they were like, it's like, okay, so you're all done. We're going to get the, you know, stuff off of you, and we're going to take the IV out of you. And we'll go over with the results. And I'm like, okay. So they were saying, okay, well, the upper endoscopy, they just said that I have gastritis, so I've got to take some pills for that. But there was no polyps in there. They also said I was completely clear for my colonoscopy, which is really good. So, and I was like going like, oh, did I do my, you know, prep right? And they're going, oh yeah, you did fine, you did great. And so they're like, okay, so we'll have you like on a pill you have to take for 2 weeks, and then we'll have you come back in, or if we have pills for 2 months, I have to come back in 2 weeks to talk to my doctor to find out like the results, and that for finding out what's wrong, because they said like, oh well, because they're like, well, the spleen is not part of your digestive system, so we'll have to figure out something from there for why it's enlarged. And so we'll they'll talk to you in a couple of weeks, and that way you can set up something. So I go back on December 1st to find out, and so they will help you like get changed and stuff and put shoes on. And so I got changed, and I had to get the wheelchair out because I was still freaking dizzy, and I wanted to take a nap when I got out of there, but I didn't. And Mom and I are both starving, so we ended up going over to Carl's Jr. and getting just a small sandwich because we got pizza last night. So first real food was burger, then pizza. But so, yep, that's what I remember. And yep, that's all done and over with. So now it's to the next thing for finding out what the heck is up with my down below, or whatever, why I'm having so much stomach pain. If it's the gastritis, that's gonna suck. All right, bye.